In part 5 of lecture 5, we will discuss deriving the first sets for the JSON programming language. Now that we have the top-down grammar, let's look to put together the first set. For production 1, program derives header, declaration section, block, period. It begins with the non-terminal header. So the first of header will be our first set for this production. Production 2, header derives program, identifier, semicolon. Since it begins with the token program, the first for production 2 is program. Since this is also the only production where header is on the left-hand side, this is the first for header, and that'll also be the first for production 1. Declaration section equals variable declarations, procedure declarations. Since it begins with a non-terminal, the first for production 3 will be the first for variable declarations. Production 4, variable declarations derives variable declaration in the singular, variable declarations in the plural. Since it begins with a non-terminal on the right-hand side, it will be the first set for variable declarations. Since every variable declaration begins with the data type, we know that whatever begins the data type will be in the first set for production 4. Production 5, variable declarations derive the empty string. Because the right-hand side has the empty string, production 5's first set will be the follow set for variable declarations. We saw that in production 3, variable declarations is followed by procedure declarations. Its first set will be the first set for production 5. Since procedure declarations can derive an empty string, the follow set for procedure declarations must be included. Production 6, variable declaration derives data type ID list. Since data type is a non-terminal, its first set will be the first set for production 6. Production 7, data type derives integer. The first set for production 7 is integer. Production 8, data type derives real. The first set for production 8 is real. Since data type is on the left-hand side of both productions 7 and 8, the first set for production 6 is real and integer. Production 9, ID list derives ID more ID list. The first for production 9 is identifier. Production 10, more ID list derives comma identifier more ID list. Because the right-hand side begins with a comma, a terminal, the first set for production 10 is comma. 11, more ID list derives the empty string. This being the case, the first set will be the follow for more ID list. More ID list is at the end of production 10, so it will be the follow of ID list. ID list is immediately followed where it appears on the right-hand side by variable declaration. So the first set for production 11 is the follow of variable declaration. The first for production 12, procedure declarations derive procedure declaration in the singular, procedure declarations, is the first set for procedure declaration. This we'll see shortly will be the first set for procedure header, which is simply the reserved word procedure. 13, procedure declarations is the empty string. This will be the follow set for procedure declarations, which is the first for block, which is the reserved word begin. Production 14, procedure declaration derives procedure header, declaration section, block, semicolon. Since the first thing on the right-hand side is a non-terminal, the first of production 14 is the first of procedure header. 15, procedure header derives procedure ID parameter list. In this case, the first thing on the right-hand side is a terminal. So the first set for production 15 is procedure. Since this is the only one where procedure header appears, it turns out that it is also the first set for production set 14. Production 16. Parameter list derives open parenthesis, parameter declarations, close parenthesis. Since the first symbol here is an open parenthesis, a terminal, that is all we have in the first set of production 16. Production 17 is epsilon production, so it will be anything that follows parameter list, which will be a semicolon. Production 18, parameter declarations derive parameter declaration, more parameter declarations. Since the first item on the right-hand side is a non-terminal, the first set for production 18 is the first set of parameter declaration. Now, the first thing in a parameter declaration will be, as we can see below, a data type. So its first set will be integer and real. Production 19, the first thing that you have there on the right-hand side is a semicolon. So the first set for production 19 is a semicolon. Production 20, more parameter declarations derive the empty string. So the first set for production 20 is the follow set for more parameter declarations. And that it will include the follow set for parameter declarations, which is simply the close parenthesis. And as we said before, the first set for production 21, parameter declaration derives data type identifier, the first set for a data type, and that would be integer or real. Production 22, block derives begin statements end. Since the right-hand side begins with the terminal begin, that is the first set for production 22. Production 23, statements derives statement in the singular, more statements. Since it begins on the right-hand side with a non-terminal, the first set for production 23 is the first for statement. Production 24, more statements derive semicolon, statement, more statements. With the right-hand side beginning with a semicolon, that will be the first set for production 24. Production 25, more statements derive the empty string. That would include everything that follows more statements, which is going to be what follows a single statement. The JSON language was designed so that every statement begins with a reserved word. So right away you can see that these 5 productions, it becomes very easy to see what the first set is. Production 26, statement derives read identifier. The first set for production 26 is read. Production 27, statement derives set identifier equals expression. It begins on the right-hand side with a set. So first set of production 26 is the word set. 28, statement derives right identifier. Since it begins with an identifier, the first set for production 28 is right. 29, statement derives if condition, then statements end clause, end if. Since the first thing you see there is the reserved word if, which is a terminal, the first set for production 29 is if. Production 30, statement derives while condition, do statements end while. Since it begins with the terminal while, the first set for production 30 is while. Production 31, statement derives until condition, do statements end until. Since it begins with the terminal until, the first set for production 31 is until. 32, statement derives call identifier argument list. Since it begins with a terminal on the right-hand side, the first set for production 32 is the token call. 33, statement derives the empty string. Since it is an epsilon production, the first set for production 33 is whatever follows statement. 34, else clause, else statements. Since it begins with, on the right-hand side, with a terminal, that terminal, else, is going to be the entire first set for production 34. Production 35, else clause derives epsilon. 35 will include the follow of else clause, which will be the reserved word token and if. Production 36, arglist derives open parenthesis, args, close parenthesis. Since it begins with the terminal open parenthesis, the first set for production 36 is open parenthesis. Arglist 37, arglist equals the empty string. Therefore, the first of production 37 will be the follow of arglist. And since arglist will be at the end of a statement, it'll be the follow of statement. Production 38. Args derive identifier more args. Beginning with a terminal identifier, production 38, its first set consists of identifier. 40. More args derives the empty string. So the first set for production 40 is the follow of more args, which is the close parenthesis. 41. Condition derives expression, relational operator expression. Since it begins with a non-terminal expression, the first for production 41 is the first for expression. The first four productions we see here are all for relational operator. 42, relational operator derives equals. So the first set for production 42 is equals. 43, relational operator derives exclamation point. The first set for production 43 is the exclamation point. Production 44, relational operator derives greater than. So the first set for production 44 is greater than. 45, relational operator derives less than. The first set for production 45 is less than. 46, expression derives term more expression. Now the first set for 46 will be the first set for term, which we will see shortly is also the first set for factor. Production 47, more expression derives add up term more expression. Since it begins with the non-terminal add up, the first set for production 47 will be the first for add up, which we will see very shortly is the plus and the minus sign. More expression derives the empty string. That means that first for production 48 will be the follow set for more expression. Production 49, term derives factor, more term. Since the right-hand side begins with a non-terminal, the first set for production 49 is the first set for factor. First for production 50, more term derives multop, factor, more term. Beginning with a non-terminal, the first set for production 50 will be the first for multop, which we will see is the asterisk and the slash. 51, more term derives the empty string. The first for production 51 will be the follow for more term. Productions 52 through 57 involve a non-terminal deriving one specific token. So that one specific token will be that particular production's entire first set. 52, factor derives identifier. The first set for 52 is identifier. 53, factor derives constant. The first set for production 53 is constant. 54, add up derives plus. The first for production 54 is plus. 55, add up derives minus. So the first set for production 55 is minus. 56, mult op derives asterisk. The first set for production 56 is asterisk. Lastly, 57, mult op derives slash. The first set for production 57 is simply slash. Let's determine the remaining first sets for the non-terminals. The first for production 3, declaration section derives variable declarations, procedure declarations, will equal the first set for production 4. Variable declarations derive variable declaration, variable declarations. This in turn will begin with the first for data type. So that's going to be int and real, both for productions 3 and 4. The first for production 23 will the first for set for statement, which includes all the productions that you can see here, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. But it also includes the follow for statement, because this also includes the follow for statement derives the empty string. First of production 41 is the same as first for production 46, which is the same as first for production 49, which is the first for expression. Expressions all begin with a terminal. Terminals all begin with a factor. So these will all begin with an identifier and then a constant. There are still a few first sets that we need to complete. We have to find the necessary follow sets. Production 5. Variable declarations derive the empty string. The first set of production 5 is equal to the first set of procedure declaration unioned with the follow set of procedure declarations unioned with the follow set of declaration section. This gives us the tokens procedure and begin. Production 11. More ID list derives the empty string is equal to the follow set of ID list, which equals the follow set of variable declaration, which contains integer, real, procedure, and begin. Production 25. Statements derive the empty string. The first set of production 25 equals the follow set of statement, which equals the follow set of more statements, which includes semicolon, end, and if, and while, and until, else. The first set of production 48 equals the follow set of more expressions, which equals the follow set of condition, which will include semicolon, end, and if, and while, and until, else, do, and then. The first set for production 51 equals the first of more expression unioned with the follow of expression. It is plus, semicolon, end, and if, and while, and until, else, do, and then.